Hello, and thank you for joining our live, interactive telephone town hall with Pennsylvania Labor and Industry Secretary Jerry Oleksiak and UC Benefits Policy Director Susan Dickinson. My name is Dirk, and I'll be today's moderator. Now, the goal of this event is to provide you with helpful information and to answer your questions, as well as update you on Pennsylvania's unemployment benefits programs during the COVID-19 pandemic. Now, as I mentioned, this is an interactive forum, and we would love to hear from you. We'll be taking as many questions from participants as we possibly can live during this event. If you have a question, you can press *3 on your phone keypad at any time, and you'll be placed in line to speak with a member of our staff. They'll take down your name and where you're calling from. And if you're a reporter, the media outlet you represent. The next time you hear your name, you will be live on the call and able to ask your question directly. If you're streaming the event on our website, you can simply type your name and question below the streaming player. We'll do our best to answer as many questions as we possibly can this afternoon. So again, to ask a question, please press *3 on your telephone keypad. We receive a lot of questions on our live events. So if we're not able to get to your question, please send us an email at uchelp@pa.gov. Again, that email address is uchelp@pa.gov. So let's begin with opening remarks from Secretary Oleksiak.
Thank you, Dirk, and welcome to everyone who is joining us this week for this, I believe, our 5th town hall. And as I've said before, we enjoy doing them, and we hope you find them as useful as we do. I'd like to start highlighting some of the successes we've had in the past week, particularly related to PEUC. As many of you know, we had issues related to backdating and missing weeks. There were 56,000 people, approximately, who couldn't file for back weeks. And we have been able to take care of that with the system that was in place, with people being able to win into the system based on their Social Security number. And of the 56,000, all but 13,000 did go in and file for their missing weeks. For those 13,000 who did not file, you will be able to get into the system and to do that until this Saturday. And Susan will provide more details on that during her comments. We also, as you know, had approximately 58,000 PEUC claims that were held because of potential fraud, and the Anti-Fraud Division went through those, and we initially were able to authenticate the majority of those claims, and this week we were able to verify another 10,000 claims. So 10,000 claims that were potentially fraud and were determined to be valid claims were released this week. And we also released payments on 34,000 claims who had incorrectly stated on their application that they were that the disaster was the reason or not the reason for their employment. So unemployment. I'm sorry, that was confusing. Let me try that again. We released 34,000 claims for individuals who incorrectly said they were not unemployed due to a disaster. So we were able to get that fix taken care of as well. So we know that was something that was holding up claims for a lot of people. So hopefully that will answer a lot of the questions that people have had related to those issues. Let me remind you as well that the PEUC program, the Federal Pandemic Unemployment Compensation Program, which is the extra $600 that all unemployment recipients receive each week on top of their regular benefits, will be ending shortly. The federal government funds this program, and as part of the CARES Act, and they will be ending the payments. The claim week ending July 25th, 2020, will be the last $600 FPUC payment claimants receive. Now, if you're still waiting on payment for any claim weeks from April 4th through July 25th, you will receive those payments if you are eligible. You will be made whole, and Susan, again, will be talking more about that. With that program ending, working with our State Insurance Department and our Department of Human Services, we have some information we want to share about other resources that may be available to you. So if you were laid off from your job due to COVID-19 and have not returned to work yet, and are no longer getting health insurance coverage through your employer, you should go to www.insurance.pa.gov. That's www.insurance.pa.gov to learn more about continuing, whether it's through COBRA, whether it's through medical assistance programs like Compass, or other options for health insurance coverage. There are also resources available at www.pa.gov. That's www.pa.gov. And there is information there on financial health, mental health resources, mortgage and rent information, food assistance, driver services, and other updates that people may find helpful as they still fight their way through this difficult time for so many of us. So thank you for joining us, and I'm going to turn it over to Susan. Susan?
Thank you, Secretary. Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining us again for our regular Thursday 1 o'clock town hall. I'll give you some updates on our various programs. The Secretary had started with the good news out of the PEUC system. We've made progress on those three main areas and have been, handling those situations that you've been asking us about week after week on these town halls and in other forums, wondering what we could do about getting you your benefits. So those three main areas he talked about, those are all taken care of. I'll remind anyone, though, if you still have on the PEUC system, if you look on your dashboard, there's a section there which will show you if there's issues on your claim and how, which issues are open. Issues generally hold up your payment until they've been resolved. So if you're seeing an issue that's coded number 261, that's an issue with your identity, and we have to verify your identity, before we can proceed paying your claim. So we do have the information on the dashboard. There's information there on how to, there's like a, what do you call it, kind of like a news ticker kind of a thing on the dashboard. And it has information, if you have a 261, on what we need from you. It's two forms of identification. One of them is a picture ID. You have to upload them to our website and also send us separately an email just to say, hey, I uploaded my stuff to the website. Please, review and release my payment. So if there are any lingering ones out there, we think we've narrowed it down pretty much, but there may still be individuals who have the 261 who shouldn't have the 261. And again, that's just an identity verification issue. So we'll need your information so we can review it. Onto the PUA debit cards. The Treasury Department is finishing up, they should be finishing up this week as long as everything goes well with mailing out debit cards to everyone. So anyone who is on the PUA claim and hasn't received their debit card yet should be receiving it by next week. If there are any, major holdups or anything, we'll be sure to put that on our website. But right now it's looking good. There's just so many. We're now, in the 750, maybe almost 800,000 claims of PUA range. So it is a lot of claims to switch over. So that is wrapping up shortly. The Secretary also mentioned that the Federal Pandemic Unemployment Compensation, otherwise known as FPUC, or the $600 on top of benefits each week, that program is wrapping up in a couple weeks. We'll keep reminding everyone each week. That is payable through the week ending July 25th, and it's tied to the claim week. So even if there were an issue on your claim and we were holding weeks in July and we didn't pay them until September, you're still going to get the $600 payments on top of those payments when we make them, even though it's September. So it's tied to the calendar week in which your benefits are being paid for. So for claim weeks beyond the week ending July 25th, those will not have any $600 payments attached to them. They will just be the regular amount of your weekly benefit amount, minus any deductions, of course. Moving on to the PEUC program. For individuals who have been on the PEUC program from the very first week, which was April 4th, this right now is your last week if you claimed weeks in full. The program was for 13 weeks. So if you haven't had any part-time employment, you've been claiming every week, this Sunday, if you're filing this Sunday, you'll be exhausting your last week. For individuals who are filing biweekly on the other week, you'll be filing in 2 weeks and you'll be exhausting your benefits. So when this happens, what comes next is the Extended Benefits Program. Right now, the Extended Benefits Program is active. It's a program that's in our law at all times, but it's not active until the unemployment rate is high enough. So once the state, and it's called a trigger, once we're triggered on to an extended benefits period, then what happens is this program kicks on, and normally it's a partially state, partially federal program, but right now the federal government's paying all of the benefits for this program. And it is a variable amount of weeks that you can claim. So it's directly related to your regular UC claim. Regular UC claims can last anywhere from 18 weeks to 26 weeks. That's the amount of benefits that you get in your account. So if you are someone who was on the 18-week of UC benefits, then what you'll do is you'll receive 9 weeks because it's half of what you would have received on regular UC. So if you are on, if you had a 26-week UC claim, you'll receive 13 weeks of maximum extended benefits. If you have an odd number that's not divisible by 2 and being even, so let's say you had 19 weeks of benefits on your regular UC claim, you will actually end up, with 9.5 weeks of benefits. And you may think, okay, how does that work? All we do for, putting together your maximum benefit amount is multiply your weekly benefit amount by that number of weeks. So whatever your weekly benefit amount is, it'll just be times 9.5, and that will be your maximum benefit amount. So if you're claiming weeks in full, after you claim your 9th week, your 10th week will just have half of the benefits as a regular week would be, and then you'll be exhausted. Of course, if you're someone who is working part-time and you have earnings to report and your claim goes longer than the standard number of weeks and you kind of draw it out, of course, your amounts that you receive each week will be variable depending on how much you work. But in any case, that's how extended benefits works. That's your maximum benefit amount. Individuals will automatically receive the initial claim. We set it up for you, so there's no application process. You don't have to contact us to set it up. Although if anyone, finishes their PEUC claim and a week or 2 goes by and you don't have a financial determination yet, in that case, you could contact us and we could just make sure that the claim was set up, make sure nothing went wrong. Once the claims are set up, extended benefits is a little different when it comes to continued claim filing. And that's because it's not part of our traditional system. Without going into too much confusing detail, our claim system is where the extended benefits program is, but when it comes to filing each week, the system was never tied to our PAT system or our internet system in the past. It was always mail claims. So you had to fill out a mail claim and mail it to us, and then we would make payment based on that mail claim. If anyone remembers from 10 years ago, if anyone was on extended benefits at the time, that's what you did. There was a claim form, you filled it out, it was like a bubble sheet, and then you mailed it in, and then payment was made. So this time it's going to be a little bit different. We did hook it up online so that you can file online. Individuals will be able to log in their regular spot on our website where you would log in for filing continued claims for regular UC or PEUC. So it's the same place. You log in, and then you'll be presented with whichever weeks are available to file. It looks a little bit different from your regular filing. It'll give you no more than 4 weeks at a time, but you are able to file 1 week at a time if you want. So we still might say biweekly, and that's fine if you want to just go in every other week. But whenever you log in, you will just be offered the most recent weeks that are available. And as a reminder, you cannot legally file for unemployment in advance. A week has to be over before you can claim unemployment for that week. So anyway, you will, you'll do that online, and there'll be a confirmation at the end that your claims were accepted. And then if there's any issue, based on how you answered questions, if you raise any issues, staff will be in touch if they have to get more information from you. Otherwise, the weeks will pay. So it will take a little bit longer for individuals who must use mail claims who do not have internet access. Again, this system is not hooked up to our Pennsylvania teleclaim system because it doesn't use our same exact traditional UC system for filing. So because Pennsylvania teleclaims isn't hooked up, individuals who don't have internet access, once they receive our financial determination telling them that their claim is set up, they can mail a request to an address that's provided on the sheet that they'll receive and ask for mail claims to be set up. And so what we'll do then is generate paper mail claims to them 4 at a time. And again, claims can't be filed in advance. So an individual has to wait for the week to be over, and then they can fill out their claim form, sign the bottom, and mail it to us. If we receive mail claims, before a week is over, which is, happened a lot 10 years ago, what we do is we send the mail claim back to you. You cannot file until a week is over, and that's a legal requirement. So we can't make any payments or anything to you until the week is over. So that pretty much covers the information about the Extended Benefits Program. We will be putting up more information on our website on Monday. And, Sunday is when individuals will start exhausting their benefits. And for individuals who are in this boat for exhausting their PEUC benefits, that means that your extended benefits claim will probably be set up on Tuesday because it's usually a 2-day lag. And so, by the time you receive the financial determination, you may receive it late in the week, or you may receive it the following week. And then, you can start logging in and filing for your weekly claims, or if you prefer, you can do biweekly as well. And one last note so that we can get to the questions. I'll mention on regular UC, we had a situation, and sometimes PEUC, brought to our attention about 2 weeks ago where some direct deposit information was being changed and individuals weren't receiving their benefits. And as we looked into it, it's all related to the PEUC fraud issue that we're having. We've talked a lot on these calls and other calls about PEUC fraud that's been going on that really started ramping up around Memorial Day. So what's happening now is a lot of people are finding that they've been receiving their payments to their direct deposit and everything is fine, and then suddenly they stop receiving payments. Now, there could be a legitimate reason for it. We could have, received your name on some cross-match somewhere that we have to look into, or you could have answered something, a question on your continued claims that maybe we're holding payment, we're not getting it to you till we get more information. There could be a legitimate reason. So I don't want everyone to think if they didn't get a payment that they're necessarily a victim of fraud. But what you should do is check online where you can see your most recent payments made. And if the payments were made and you didn't receive them yet after your standard amount of time, usually 2-3 days later, you could be a victim of the PEUC fraud. What's happening is the fraudsters are setting up PEUC claims under your Social Security number, and putting in their direct deposit information. And when it gets to Pennsylvania Treasury, it overwrites your direct deposit information that was in there, and now it's their claim that's set up to receive your benefits. So individuals who, started coming forward with this problem, we worked with our vendor to shut off all of the direct deposit functionality going from our PEUC system to Pennsylvania Treasury. So going forward, this won't be an issue and people won't have their direct deposit changed. So now we're just addressing the ones in the past and trying to get those people the benefits that were rightfully theirs and also get the benefits back from the fraudsters. So if this, is your situation, again, just because you stop receiving payments doesn't necessarily mean you're a victim of fraud. There could be a legitimate reason why we're not making payment, and you'll hear from us, what that reason is. But you should also be receiving, we send a letter to everyone who files a PEUC claim, and the fraudsters are using your real address. So they're not using some other address that's theirs. They're using your home address. So the form goes to you and it explains that you've opened a claim, and if this was not you, then here's where you can return any checks you receive, and it gives you a Treasury account, a Treasury address in order to return checks. Now, in this case, it's not really a check that you need to return because you didn't receive money. In fact, it's different. Someone took money from you. So if you receive one of these forms and a claim for PEUC was set up in your name, there is a separate address on our website where you can send the information. It's the Department of Labor and Industry, 651 Boas Street, room 500, Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, 17121. So unlike checks, if you receive checks that weren't for you and we have you return those to Treasury, this is actually the opposite, where there's money that you are owed and someone else took from you. So if you tell Labor and Industry instead, we're then able to stop the PUA claim, make sure that the fraudsters aren't able to change anything or do anything with that claim, and then start working with Treasury on getting that money back and getting benefits to you. So I think that is all of my announcements for the day, and we can move on and start taking questions.
Okay. Our first question, we've got Paula on the line to ask. Go ahead, Paula, you're live. What would you like to know?
Hi. Thank you for taking my question. I have exhausted all of my benefits since April the 25th, and it told me that I didn't have to do anything to roll over to PEUC, and it seems like it's rolled over, and it shows a balance, and I've claimed every 2 weeks, but I have not received any payment it's been 6 weeks now, and I'm still in my benefit year.
Hi, Paula. So a couple of things that come to mind, and it's hard to say for sure, without seeing your claim. If you look and see at what the recent payments are, if it says that the recent if the recent payments have been dispersed, then those payments should have gone to you, and it's possible that you could be a victim of the fraud that we were just talking about. Again, if our system says we made them, then we made them. So if you just didn't receive the money, it's possible that it went to someone who should not have had them. But now, if it doesn't show any recent payments for those 6 weeks, and you said that you've been filing for those 6 weeks, and at least the filing portion is okay, then it sounds like you have an individual issue on your claim why the payments are being held. And that could be any number of things. I believe you said that you were still within your benefit year, but I will make the announcement generally for anyone listening that once your benefit year ends, your claim may temporarily be stopped because we have to test you and see if you qualify for a new claim before we can let you continue on PEUC. If you're still within your benefit year, it just sounds like there is some other issue on the claim. Again, it's hard to say without actually seeing the individual claim in front of me, but that might be, you can always send in an email to our email account, uchelp@pa.gov, if you want to find out. But definitely I want to remind you and everyone to check your recent payments and see if the payments have actually been made, and possibly you just didn't receive them, because then that could be an indication of fraud.
All right, our next question comes from Dennis. Dennis, welcome to the call. What is your question?
Hi, thanks for taking my call. I worked 2 part-time jobs and was laid off from both jobs. Can you combine the income earned in the same week to qualify for a credit week for unemployment compensation?
Hi, Dennis. Yes, actually. So if you, the credit week law just looks to see that you made $116 in a week. So if you had multiple employers, we're just looking to see $116 total. So you would be able to then, if you received your financial determination and it said you didn't have enough credit weeks, there's instructions there on appealing that and sending the necessary pay stubs or some sort of a proof to the service center, and then they can, they'll review, they'll do the math and make sure you have $116 in each week altogether, and then they can update that for you.
Now we've got John joining us. John, you're live on the call. What is your question, sir?
Thank you for taking my call today. You answered one of my questions, but I'm still unclear on a few others. My benefit year ends, I believe it is in the beginning of July. Will extended benefits still be available to me, or do I have to go through, like you were saying, about getting questioned to be able to move on forward? My other question is, since this will be my last week for PEUC, does my $600 from the federal program, does that end with this week also, or will that continue to the end of July like the program is set up to?
Hi, John. Those are great questions. So the the extended benefits claim, getting my programs confused. When the extended benefits claim sets up, you will be able to claim any benefits until the benefit year ends. As you were alluding to, I said earlier that we do test people's eligibility when their benefit year ends. So there's a brief IT test that's done behind the scenes that just sees if you might have enough wages to qualify, and if it looks like you do, then the claim is temporarily stopped while, we have to look and see if you can qualify for a new claim. And of course, if you know pretty much that you will qualify for a new claim, you don't have to wait for us. You can just file your new claim when the week is here and, the first week of your claim. So you'll be able to do that. The other question about the $600, that will continue on extended benefits. So as soon as you roll over to extended benefits, you'll continue getting that each week, of course, until the week ending July 25th being the last week. The benefits won't continue after that week for the $600. So for anyone going on extended benefits, they'll receive the $600 for just 3-4 weeks, and then it ends. So those were great questions. Thank you.
Next on the call, we've got Francis. Francis, what is your question? Hello, Francis. Are you there? We will see if we can get Francis back in the call. We're moving on now to Tricia. Tricia, welcome to the call. What is your question?
Something's wrong.
Oh, Tricia, I hear someone. Is this Lorinda?
Yes, this is Lorinda.
Yes, Lorinda, you're on the call live. What is your question?
I didn't realize I was not muted. I'm sorry. Yes, my name is Lorinda, and I was automatically enrolled in the PEUC. My original UC was exhausted with the week ending May 9th, and my benefit year ends late in July. I have not received any payment on the claims that I have submitted starting with the week ending May 16th. It has now been close to 6 weeks. My situation is actually similar to Paula's. I have not received any PEUC payments or PEUC, and although I did receive the notice of financial determination letter, and all I can say is it's causing huge financial problems. I actually have received a job offer, and my car is not in a condition where I can drive to that new job that I'm expecting to show up at in a couple weeks.
Hi, Lorinda. You're right. This does sound a lot like Paula's situation as well, and that kind of makes it tough because I don't have the claim, so I can't really see what's happening on your specific claim. But the same advice, if you haven't checked online yet to see if the payments were actually made, you should do that. There's a place on our website where you can go and check for most recent payments. If the payments were made but you haven't received them and you were using direct deposit, that means you could be a fraud victim. and you should, contact our labor and industry building. That address I had provided of room 500, it's on our website, so you can go to our website and go to the fraud page, and it provides it there. Or it could be an individual, issue on your claim that's holding up payment, that's waiting for someone to review it. So you had mentioned that your benefit year does not end until July, so that wouldn't be the reason quite yet for your payment to be held up. There could be some other reason. There's so many different eligibility issues in the world of unemployment, so it would probably be one of those specific issues. And once someone goes through, we have a pending payment list that staff go through every week for all the payments that are being held, and they look at your claim and they see what needs to be done. And if some sort of issue was raised by your employer or something along those lines, we'll be contacting you to get more information, and then be able to release them if warranted, or if it were a situation where it wasn't warranted, we would issue the denial, and then you would get the explanation as to why not. So in the meantime, of course, I know it's very difficult for people to get through on the phone with us, but it is possible. We do receive plenty of phone calls each week that we handle. So if you try calling us, I always tell people to call us later in the week. Thursdays and Fridays are much better than Mondays and Tuesdays, and people have a higher success rate of getting through. And also live chat is available 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. Monday through Friday. We have a lot of individuals, manning the live chat, and we've been adding more staff all the time. So that's another good option. The wait for live chat is never more than 5 minutes, but of course, getting in sometimes is an issue if there's too many people trying to get in at the same time. And then, of course, there's always the email route. There are a lot of emails that we receive, and of course, it is taking us a long time to go through them, but at least then that secures your place in line. If you want to email our uchelp@pa.gov account, and then, someone will come across it. But as long as you've been filing your, biweekly claims and they've been accepted, that means that they are pending on your account, and someone will be looking at them as they get to them on their list, and will be, looking for the reason.
All right, we're going to segue now to some online questions. And Jim wrote in, of my 2 previous employers, only one is listed in my income profile. Why is that? And can I update the system to include my most previous employer?
Hi, Jim. So it depends on when you had the employment. So unemployment benefits are based on the base year. So I'll talk a little bit about what the unemployment compensation base year is. First, I'll just make a mention, if someone is on a PEUC claim, the base year is done in a completely different way. For each disaster that's declared, because it's very similar to our disaster unemployment program, when a disaster is declared, the base year is exactly the same for everyone on the program. So right now, anyone who is on PEUC, your base year to establish eligibility is only the calendar year 2019. So we're only looking at employment and wages in 2019. So on to regular unemployment. The base year is the first 4 of the last 5 completed calendar quarters. So what that means is, if you look back in approximately the last year and a half, that first year is really going to be your base year, and then the quarter that we're currently in and the last quarter aren't going to count. So if you were employed, so here we are in June. If you filed a claim anywhere in April, May, or June, your base year is all of 2019. But if you filed a claim in March, as many people did when the pandemic started, your base year is October 2018 through September 2019. So the base year shifts every quarter. It shifts the quarter. So if you filed a claim now, your base year is 2019. If you had an employer in 2020, that employer wouldn't count yet for your financial determination. Now, the recent employer does count for your separation reason. Why aren't you working for them anymore? Why are you unemployed? that type of stuff, is relevant to your unemployment claim, and we still need that information. But when it comes to establishing the amount of money you can get on a claim, we're only looking at the base year, and then that's what we use to establish it.
All righty. Another online question. This one comes from Cynthia. Cynthia asks, if my employer asks me to go back sooner than I feel safe to work, how do I respond, and what are my rights?
Great question, Cynthia. So what happens if anyone ever, has a reason to refuse work, what you should be doing is trying to work out the issue with your employer. So first I'll mention, and this is not really an unemployment thing, but more of a labor law compliance thing, Pennsylvania is an at-will state, which means employers can, fire people at will for any reason, as long as it's not a reason protected by law. So, we are frequently asked, well, can someone fire me for this? Can someone fire me for that? And the answer is yes to all of them, because Pennsylvania is an at-will state. But now, when it comes to unemployment purposes, whether or not you would qualify for benefits, we look to see that the party who initiated it had good cause, and that they exhausted all their options and did everything they can to preserve the employment relationship. So, if your employer wants you to come back, but let's say that that the employer is not practicing, the safe CDC guideline, for COVID, social distancing, all of that, you would be expected to address it with your employer first. You can't just say no, but you would have to point out to them the problems you're seeing, and try to get a resolution. And of course, the more of this you can get in writing, the better. And you would try to work that out with them and give them a chance to correct the behavior, so that maybe you can, accept employment. Now, there's some other situations. For example, maybe the employer is doing everything they need to, but you have a personal situation where you have someone in the household who may be immunosusceptible, and it may be an issue for you to be having constant public contact. That these are all case-by-case issues where we would look to see, what measures did you take? Did you exhaust all your options? As long as you're doing what a reasonable person would do, and you're trying to preserve the employment, but maybe it's not possible, that's what an examiner would look at to make a decision as to whether or not you should receive benefits.
All right, back to the phones. We've got Tricia on the line with us. Go ahead, Tricia. What is your question?
Yes, hi. When the PUA, when you were able to first file for that, I filed under the PUA. I got paid for 1 week, and then the next time I logged into my dashboard, it said inactive, which I know several people had trouble with that. And it kind of it seemed like through reapplying. I don't know if it actually reapplied because my claim number stayed the same. But it had brought an issue up from my old employer back on my dashboard, which had stopped my payments. I had called the call center many a times, and everybody I talked to says they can't help me with it. I guess it needs to go to an examiner, and they were going to forward messages. The last time I spoke to a rep, she seemed to not understand what I was explaining happened. And when I hung up with her and had gotten to my dashboard, she had changed my claim from active to suspended and added another issue to it. And it still hasn't been resolved. And the first issue that came up on there has been 30 days now, and I still have not got any help with it.
Hi, Tricia. Yeah, it sounds like a couple different things are happening there. When you had mentioned that you were able to file for 1 week in the beginning, it sounds like, and I don't know if this is the beginning of the issue or not, but it may have been one of the issues where individuals were not able to file for additional weeks after their first week of the claim. If you had heard what the Secretary was mentioning in the opening remarks, that was mostly handled now for all except for 13,000 people. And so that was one situation where if they haven't been able to file in the past, they could file now. The weeks are open now. But then it sounds like that may not be the only issue, that you have some compound things happening. So the issues that are on your dashboard, they are, and you'll notice they'll each have a code, a different number code. Those just are eligibility issues that have to be reviewed. And it sounds like staff had already said, that it has to go to an examiner, whatever your particular issue is. And then the examiner would, they would actually do the same thing that they would do on regular UC. They would have to look at what the problem is, between, you had mentioned your previous employer. So they would have to go back and forth between you and the employer and find out, what the story is. And, the more what you're saying and what your employer is saying doesn't match, they have to continue going back and forth until they kind of come up with like a resolution or one story. So that would be from the description you're giving, that's what it sounds like. So an examiner would just have to look at your case, go back and forth. It's called rebuttal. Get rebuttal from both you. They would get your story and then get rebuttal from the employer on their story, and then make the decision as to whether or not, you would qualify for benefits based on the last day. And when it comes to any type of decision on unemployment, as I mentioned, on the previous caller, it all comes down to, who initiated the separation, what did they do to preserve the relationship? So if, whichever party is the one that kind of failed to do everything they could do is usually the party where the judgment is kind of against them. So, but, it depends on the situation and different sections of law that we have. Sometimes the burden is on the employer. Sometimes the burden of proof is on you. Depends on the section of law as well. So for more information about this process, even though it's on a PUA claim, it's just our regular unemployment process. It's the same thing. You can look at our website, www.uc.pa.gov. There's a frequently asked questions section, and there's a claimant section there. And there's a bunch of videos available about different processes. And one of the videos, and they're not using real people. It's like cartoon drawings kind of a thing. One of the videos explains the adjudication process. So if you want to see how that works, just go watch the quick video. I think it's only a minute or two, maybe 90 seconds, on the adjudication process. And then that explains what will be happening on your claim.
All right, moving on. We've got Anna joining us now. Go ahead, you're live on the call. What is your question?
Yes, I wanted to know if someone moved from one state to another, from Pennsylvania to another state, if it could continue receiving unemployment.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And the answer is yes. So unemployment is based on the, as we were mentioning on a separate caller, it's all based on your base year and where you worked in your base year. So if, as long as you established your claim in Pennsylvania, either because you worked here or maybe you worked here part of the year of your base year, maybe you worked in 2 states, 3 states, whatever it may be, you can have an unemployment claim in any state where you worked at least part of the base year. So once you've established your claim, if you move, then that is fine. You'll have to, in order to maintain benefits, you'll have to change your address with us, and, you'll have to make sure that you're still able and available to accept work, in the new place that you're at. But, yep, you should be fine from that point on.
Moving back to an online question. This one comes from Lisa. I've yet to receive my PUA debit card. My direct deposit stopped, and I received 1 paper check. What should I do?
Hi, Lisa. So The paper checks, you should actually continue receiving them if you've filed for additional weeks. Now, of course, it may take longer to receive those, not just in the mail, but because there are so many being printed, sometimes the printing may take an extra day or two. So you should continue receiving checks. And if you, at one point, of course, it will be switched over to debit card, in which case you should receive that in the mail. As I mentioned earlier in the call, the debit cards are almost done being sent. It's been taking a while just because of the sheer volume. There's so many of them. So the Pennsylvania Treasury has sent them to a debit card company in batches, and they should be finishing up the last batches soon. So you should be looking for that debit card probably late next week, at the latest, possibly the following week. And then any benefits that you did not receive by check should be on that debit card.
So Ron writes, will PUA or PUA be getting a live chat feature like UC has?
Hey, Ron. So we are actually planning on, we're putting together the pieces of having staff trained on both. Right now we have separate PUA staff from our regular staff. And it's our regular staff for regular unemployment, PEUC, EB, all of those programs, who have the chat capability. So we're going to have them trained on PUA as well, and then they'll be able to answer questions, for any of the programs. I do not have a timeline on it yet, but of course, the faster it is, the better for you and for us. We want people to be able to, provide comprehensive information as much as possible. So we are moving in that direction.
All right, we're going back to the phones. I believe our next caller's name is Michelle. What is your question?
Hi, yes, thank you for taking my call. Actually, my question is similar to the two previous questions before. I was receiving PUA for a while through direct deposit, and then I guess due to the fraud, you guys found out, you switched me to receiving checks. The last check I received was in early June. I filed for weeks of June 13th and the weeks of June 20th, and I had never received any more checks or a direct deposit. On the 19th of June, I received a letter from PA Treasury saying that I will be receiving a debit card soon. So my question is, the week of the 13th, of June 13th, June 20th, and obviously this coming week that we're in now, will they all 3 weeks be on the debit card already, or is there anything that I have to do to make sure that they're on the card when it gets to me?
Hi, Michelle. So if you haven't received the check, and actually some of those weeks may still arrive by check. June 13th would have been the 14th. It's only been 10 days. It's possible you might still get some of them by a check. However, anything that wasn't made by a check, you will have waiting for you on the debit card when it comes. So that shouldn't be an issue, and hopefully that debit card will come by next week or at the latest the following week.
All right, bring in Josh live on the call. Josh, go ahead. What is your question?
Hi, thanks for taking my call. I have a two-part question here. My wife is self-employed. Her hours were impacted here by COVID almost 12 weeks ago, but she got a W-2 for a part-time coaching job she did for $50, and we've been having trouble. The regular UC obviously doesn't allow her to file through that, but when she goes into PUA, it sees that W-2 and it says she's monetarily ineligible. So that's the first part of my question is how do we get that cleared up? But that leads to the second part. I've been 12 weeks, and this is the first time I've been able to speak to anybody. Every time I call the hotline, all I get is busy. I go to the live chat. It says we're busy, end chat. I've sent emails. Only to 2 weeks later, get a reply back that says, please call our hotline. I've even gone to my state representative 4 times. They've filed appeals on our behalf. Nothing. So I guess the first part of my question is, how can I get a hold of someone to get help? And the second part of my question is, going forward in the future, I wouldn't do business with a company that I can never get a hold of. So I think it's completely unacceptable for the state to be unable to be gotten a hold of at this point. So I guess my question is, what are you doing so that in the future there's more bandwidth to get people to talk to a person?
Susan, let me take the second part of that question. Or you want to do the first part of the question about the W-2, and then I can address the second piece?
Sure, we'll do that. So when it comes to the W-2, that is actually kind of interesting because when we first launched the program, it was over a weekend, and there was a wage check that prevented anyone who had any wages on file from proceeding. And what we did very quickly, within 2 days, was have the vendor put in our full wage process to actually calculate financial eligibility for regular UC, so that if someone only had, as you mentioned, $50 or so on our wage record, a person couldn't qualify for a claim with that amount, so it would let them proceed once the full wage check was done and it saw that they could not file or that they could not qualify. However, for some cases, we still have a question on there that says, have you been disqualified from regular unemployment? I can't remember the exact wording, but it's like, do you have a financial denial on regular unemployment? And if you say yes, then you can proceed with filing the regular claim. Soon, we're hoping to actually have the systems talk to each other so that the PEUC system can see that someone has a denial and we don't have to actually ask people. But in any case, that's how you can move forward. If you don't qualify financially for regular unemployment, you can say that you are denied regular unemployment and then you can proceed. Although it wasn't quite clear in the question, but I'll also address if she did do that and she does already have a claim and it's simply the amount that you're looking to change, then you can just send, and it sounds like you already have possibly sent an email to our PEUC account, ucpua@pa.gov. There is a financial, a group that is dealing just with the financial determinations and making changes to financial determinations. There's simply just a very large volume of them. So if you have sent that email, then they do have it in their queue. And if it's simply a change, like an adjustment in the financial amount that you receive each week, then they will be getting to that and making that adjustment.
Thank you, Susan. Just to answer the second part of your question, we understand your frustration. We are frustrated as well. We have done all we can since the mitigation efforts began, and without getting too much into some of the details, we went from record low unemployment to record high unemployment within a matter of a few weeks. We have been spending a lot of time. We've hired people. We've brought people back to the agency. We have rearranged some of our personnel within the agency. We've brought retirees back, worked with other state agencies who have lent us some of their employees. So we are doing what we can. I just, again, to put some of this in perspective, since we began the mitigation efforts in mid-March, we have gotten over $19 billion, over $19 billion with a B, dollars worth of benefits out the door. We have answered over 200,000 calls, over 450,000 emails, over 100,000 chats. So people are getting through. We understand the difficulties that people have, and we are doing what we can to respond. We want to get the benefits to the people that need them and deserve them. And I know it doesn't help if you are not on the right side of those stats. I understand that. And that is something that we are working very, very hard at every day in the department.
Thank you, Secretary Oleksiak. Now, just a quick note on timing. It looks like we're running out of time. We have time for one more question, and this one comes from online. Cheryl writes, when I filed for PUA 6 weeks ago, I received an email stating notice of review of wages. My dashboard says that I am monetarily ineligible with one issue. How do I find out what the issue is / if I am eligible?
Okay, so that's actually kind of interesting because when it comes to the PUA program, there is no monetary ineligibility. It may just be that you're at the lowest amount. If this is a UC claim, and maybe that's what we're talking about here, if it is a UC claim and you're monetarily ineligible, then you'll receive the determination in the mail, and it will, explain to you how you appeal if you do have wages to add. So if on regular UC, that is your issue, you would simply have to appeal and send the proof of your wages for your base year. So again, it won't be anything that you've done in the last couple months, but it will be over the period of your base year, which is printed on your financial determination. If it is a PUA claim for individuals on PUA, your dashboard will tell you what the issues are on your claim. And those issues are in the background. They're on an issue list that the staff go through and they, take care of. They may have to get more information from you, or, maybe there's something that they have to do in order to resolve the issue. Or, if you end up not being eligible, then a denial is issued to you so that you can appeal the denial if you feel that that's fit. So depending on the situation, there's some different outcomes, different possible outcomes there. But in any case, there will be something issued to you at some point if there is a denial on any program that we have. We can't just issue denials, we can't just hold benefits or cancel benefits for someone without giving them, proper notice as to why you're not getting benefits. So something will be forthcoming if you haven't received it yet. And when it does arrive, it will have instructions with it on what you should do, if anything.
Thank you very much, Susan. And as mentioned, we're coming to an end of today's live event. I want to thank everyone for participating in this L&I Town Hall. We appreciate the opportunity to speak directly with you and answer your questions. Let's go ahead and get some closing comments from Secretary Oleksiak.
Thank you, Dirk, and thank you to our fellow citizens who were part of this today. As I said at the start, we find these valuable. We learn something every time we do one, and I'm hoping that you find them helpful and worthwhile as well. Thank you.
For Pennsylvania Department of Labor and Industry updates, you can always visit www.uc.pa.gov. And once again, if we were unable to address your questions, please send an email to uchelp@pa.gov. Again, send an email to uchelp@pa.gov. Truly a heartfelt thank you to everyone for taking the time to participate. We hope you stay healthy and safe and have a wonderful day.